Thanks for your time. How's life treating
Yes,
you?
good. Treating me well. You got me at the right moment. The last 2 3 weeks have been the first time I've had live audiences in a year, so I'm just ecstatic uh, to be back because it
Yeah.
was a year of pause.
So you mentioned the live audiences. What was that like? What were the
So
gigs? Were they
I
social
have done.
distance?
So first, I just did comedy clubs, and
Yeah.
that was absolutely lovely. Um, and then I did one tour show,
Right.
and that was absolutely amazing. Even though it was bizarre, it was everybody was scattered around. I noticed the average age was above 55, so I think it was two jab people only.
Right.
But it was fun. Everybody was happy to be there, and we had a blast.
Yeah. Brilliant. So you've just announced the tour as well. Are you?
Yes, that was number one. So the tour is called Apocalypse Not Now.
Yeah.
Its genesis is from the panic at the beginning of last year when we didn't know what this was going to be, whether this was the end of the world.
Yeah.
And this entire show sort of saying the apocalypse didn't come, even
Yeah.
though we flirted with the end of the world. We're still going.
We
So
got
it's a
going.
laugh celebration of getting through
Yeah.
all
You've
of
kind
it.
of
But I mean, it was I don't want to. I'm not making light of it. It was rough for a lot of people
yeah.
in lots of ways. Some people physically, other people just mental health. Like I was alone for the first 4 months of lockdown,
Right.
and that was bizarre. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if you live with many people, but like when you're alone, it's just one of those things where I spent every day doing the same thing. You get up, you go for a walk,
Yeah.
you read a book, you watch some Netflix, you
Yeah.
call someone on WhatsApp, but
Yeah.
no human beings. There was a point I hadn't touched someone for 51 days.
Right. Okay. I mean, yeah, it was very bizarre. I mean, what kept you going?
I think it was a combination of the hope that this is just a thing which we're going through. All
Yeah.
pandemics and all bad periods are followed by a good period. So there was that, but then also just a coterie of friends. Like I actually wonder if my friends had some kind of like a roster because every day or two a different friend would call me,
Right.
check how I was doing. So I wonder if they were literally, I'm on Daliso duty now. I'm on Daliso duty now. But mixture of that, I also did a lot of writing, right? I
Yeah.
wrote a lot
Okay.
of jokes, I wrote a book, and just like trying to turn that all the solitude and having nothing to do into a positive, because I'm
Yeah.
never able to write that much when I've got like, like in life now, I've managed to, because I've had so many things on today, I've managed to squeeze an hour and a half of writing in,
Right.
while
Okay.
during pandemic times, you could write for 7 hours if you want.
Yeah. That kind of leads me on to a similar subject. We've interviewed a lot of musicians who said that while, like you said, it was a difficult time, the um the breaks giving them a chance to write and explore different ideas and things like that. Is that something you can relate to as a comedian?
Yes, I've written so I've written my last. Usually, I write one show for you. I think I've written 2 years of shows
Right. Okay.
during the pandemic. Maybe I'll just tour one, then start touring the other one, or just on occasion do like super shows if the
Yeah.
audience is willing to sit there. I think it's been good. Also, it's allowed me to sort of delve into subjects I never considered.
Right.
That's another thing which happened because I'd sort of come to 4 or 5 things which I always talked about. I talked about them well, but during the pandemic, you start thinking about all sorts of other things. So it was
Yeah.
good.
Okay. I mean that leads me on to the next question. Obviously, the show's called Apocalypse Not Now. What sort of themes are you covering in this?
So talk about the pandemic, fear of the end of days.
Yeah.
Other times the world has almost ended, like Haley's comet, all the times when we've been like Y2K. There have
Yeah.
been many times when people are like, this is it, it's over. So I talk about all of that, but
Yeah.
I also talk about like big changes in your own life, like in Malawi, where my father is from. He was arrested for a crime, he was put on trial, his office blew up, all sorts of crazy things were going on.
Yeah.
So I talk about all of that and big times in my life when there's been like a total upheaval.
Right. Okay. Okay. I mean, like you said, you spent the first two lockdowns alone. I mean, what kept you sane throughout, or insane, or whichever way you want to put it?
It was really just blind optimism. I'll admit I thought it was going to be 2 months. Like
Yeah,
right at the beginning, I actually started
everybody did.
streaming a show every day. I was like, I'm going to stream this show every day till the end of lockdown, thinking it was going to be 2 months.
Yeah,
By episode 200, I was like, okay, maybe I need to start thinking that this isn't going away.
yeah, yeah. There's a point where it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I
I
mean,
think a lot of it, maybe it was self delusion, but it kept me happy. I was always
yeah,
happy and positive, and then there would be a few days when I would get dark. One of the things I stopped doing, and I assume I'm not the only one, is I stopped watching the news
yeah, yeah,
because, especially March, April, May, every day was just death tolls, and it was so it weighed on you because you had no power to do anything.
yeah, yeah.
So that was a big thing. I was like, okay, I'll check once a week, see what the government has to say, but I don't need daily updates, and let me
No.
just try to get a semblance of a life.
It was like every
And
time you turned the radio on as well, it was just like every advert was.
everything,
Yeah.
everything. Oh,
I mean, you mentioned
and
Netflix.
I'm
Though. What?
hoping that in 10 years, this will be a story we tell our kids. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
be
Uh,
another live tour for you.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
You mentioned Netflix. What were your go-to series?
Oh, my go-to series is I watched a lot of sci-fi. So I
Yeah,
watched a lot of sci-fi that I hadn't watched because I'm a big sci-fi fan, but who has the time? So I watched a sci-fi series called Grimm. I watched a bunch of things like that. For me, it was all take me away from reality. I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
want reality. So yeah, I watched Once Upon a Time. The more fantastical, the better.
Oh, okay, brilliant. Okay, everybody's had an embarrassing lockdown story, even whether it's DIY, cookery, exercise disasters. I mean, what about you? Did you do anything embarrassing you want to admit?
Um, I what's the age group that listens to your show?
Well, randomly anything really. We've got
Anything?
the whole
Well,
the
you can
whole
edit it
estate.
out if it's inappropriate, right?
I'm not going to do that now. You've said that.
Oh no. Okay, I actually don't even know what I'm allowed. This isn't live. I can tell a story and it can be edited out
Yeah,
if
we can work
necessary.
on that, but trust me,
Okay, so I'm in lockdown. I'm on all these dating apps, swiping madly, trying to find love in a hurry, right?
yeah,
I think everybody's standards became lower if they were alone in lockdown. They were just like just another human being. And
yeah,
I got chatting with someone who was very sort of kinky,
yeah.
and I ordered a custom made kinky necklace,
Right.
right?
Okay.
Which I was going to give to her when we met. And then the communication broke down
Right.
and we didn't meet up. And I've got this necklace
Where is
just
it?
sitting there.
Have you got it
Say that
now?
again. Say that again.
Do you have it with you now?
I do have it. I do have it, but
You can't disappoint me now. I've got to see it
okay,
now.
okay, hold on. Hold on. Interesting. Okay. No, I guess you will have to edit this out. I'm not really sure where I put it. If you look at my flat is somewhat chaotic. So
Okay.
it's under something. Oh. But anyway, this failure during the pandemic was buying this little necklace and then ending up not using it
Uh,
for what it was intended.
fair enough. Okay.
But it got me thinking of things like, people who propose
Yeah.
and get told no. Do you keep the ring?
I've never thought of that.
Yeah, because every time you look at it, it's going to remind you of your failure. I guess you go
Yeah.
to a thrift shop or save it for the next lady.
Yeah. Well, there was a guy that he lived in a block of flats. I'm sure it was in London, and he serenaded somebody in the next apartment block, which was about 200 yards away, and during the
Oh,
first
wonderful.
lockdown,
Yeah.
and
I
they'd never
love how
met.
people actually talk about in my show a lot of people who adapted in entertaining ways
Yeah.
to the social distancing. Like there was, I don't know if you saw the clip of the vicar who was baptizing people with a water pistol with holy water.
No, I didn't see that.
That was
That's brilliant.
fantastic. Fantastic.
I saw the guy that dressed up as a tree so he could walk around his estate at night.
No, that
Yeah.
wouldn't work.
It
Really?
did, yeah. He dressed up
That's
as a.
just
I
absurd.
can't remember
There
what
was
type of bush it was, but he walked around his estate.
in Sweden or something, I think there was you were allowed if you had a dog to walk the dog.
Yeah.
And so there was a person who got like a puppet of a dog, and would
Right.
walk the puppet of the dog.
Wow. Okay. You've talked about living on your own and it being difficult. What were the good things about living on your own?
Good things is you have total freedom,
Yeah.
right? Don't like my sleep schedule. I woke up when I wanted. I went to sleep when I wanted. There was no commitments, and also being able to create as long as I like. I also got called and spoke to my family a lot more
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
I do in normal life when I have all kinds of appointments and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was good. I had some Zoom meals with family.
Yeah. Are they
It,
back?
all things being said, if this was an apocalypse, it was a pretty light one. It was not pleasant, but you know what I mean. It's like I'm glad this happened in the age of Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah. It would have been different back in the 80s.
Oh my lord. Yes. Yes, we could barely ring each other.
Yeah. I mean, is your family out in Malawi?
Yes, so my parents are in Malawi, and one of my brothers. One of
Okay.
my brothers in Qatar, and one is in South Africa. And what's interesting is whenever we met, we'd compare notes because
Right.
each country we're in was dealing with it entirely differently.
Yeah. 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 I was going to ask what were the differences? What was it? What were their kind of
So my brother
experiences?
in South Africa was total lockdown.
Yeah.
People weren't allowed to buy cigarettes or booze. I don't understand how they thought that. Maybe they thought people would act crazy, but theirs was the most like militant
Yeah.
lockdown of all. And then Malawi, people were still meeting at restaurants, people were still going out. So there was the full spectrum. And then my
Different. Yeah.
brother, who's in Qatar, that one was sort of in between, sort of in between. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, just in terms of Malawi, then, how long did you live out there before you moved to the UK?
I've never lived there. So
Right.
I'm Malawian, but I grew up in exile, right?
Right.
So I grew up in Zambia, Kenya,
Yeah.
Thailand. We were bouncing from country to country. When I eventually finished high school, I went to live in Malawi for like a year and a half before
Okay.
going to university, but I never properly lived there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, just
Which is
go.
why I have a radio show which is called Citizen of Nowhere, because really, other than blood, I am from nowhere because I've
Right.
never been in one place.
Yeah. What was that like for you growing up?
When you're a kid, you don't question it. You just are a little different. You've got a bit of a weird accent and you are always moving and making new friends. But only when you're an adult and you start talking with other friends, you realize things like, I know nobody who I knew when I was 11. I have
Yeah. Yeah.
friends who have lifelong friends. That's something which never ever happened. And also things like, I never went to the same school. I switched from system to system. So it's just the lack of continuity. But I'm also a bit of a chameleon
Right.
because of that, in that I can sort of get along with most people, with
Yeah.
anyone. I just have many different ways of adapting.
Okay. In terms of comedy, then, what was your exposure to comedy in kind of growing up?
So I'd never seen stand-up comedy, but I was always funny and I liked funny. So I loved Roald Dahl. I loved funny movies. I loved Coming to America and all these things. So I loved funny. And then it was only when I was in university I saw stand-up comedy
Yeah.
and it blew my mind. And once I tried it, there was no going back.
Yeah. What kind of pushed you into it? Because that's quite a big
I
jump.
wanted to be an author. I wanted to be an author. So I was doing a lot of open mics, like poetry open mics and things like that. And then I heard there was a comedy open mic. I took a funny poem to it.
Oh, okay.
And everyone else was doing stand up, and I read a funny poem. And I was like, okay, I need to do this right. So the next week I wrote jokes and then I tried it, and they worked so well
Yeah. You've not looked back.
that I was like, oh, I have to keep doing this. It's also, if you write fiction, you
Yeah.
write it, it's published, maybe you get one or two messages from people who enjoyed it. Stand up, every moment you're getting an instant feedback about whether people like what you're saying. And that's very, very validating.
I was going to ask what was that like? I mean, because it's going into stand-up comedy, and I mean, comedies. Everyone's got their own sense of humor. I mean, what was that like?
When it goes well, it's one of the biggest highs.
Yeah.
because it just fills you because you've got the adrenaline. Will it work? Will it work? And then it works, and then it's like there's no feeling like it. I often say that I don't perform for money because I'd perform anyway. I perform for all the travel and the
Yeah.
buying outfits and all of that
Yeah.
around it, because the actual performing is so much fun. I would do it for free.
Okay. I mean, in the UK, I mean, you shot to fame on Britain's Got Talent. But how did that change life for you as a comedian? And what was
The
that
main
like?
thing that changed is it gave me an audience.
Yeah.
So 5 years ago, I would perform for 20 people in a pub.
Yeah.
Now I'm performing for 500 people in a theater.
Yeah.
So I'm still doing what I always did, but now people are listening to me. And that's the main thing. Also, it gave me a bit more financial security, which is, of course, wonderful. But the main thing is it's made me write more, because
Yeah.
if you know that someone's going to be there to listen to it, it's very motivating.
Absolutely. I mean, what was the one thing you learned from that whole experience?
The main thing I learned from it is that everybody likes me. That's a weird thing to say, but I always used to think I was a niche. So, like, if I was trying to perform, I'd be like, oh, okay, maybe it's like African immigrants like me, or like very lefty people who are into Africa will like me.
Yeah.
But it actually showed me like a broad range of an audience would like my jokes. And
Yeah.
so it's made me actually like apply to a much bigger window of shows than I used to beforehand.
Okay. Has that changed the kind of style you write now that you've got a wider
The
audience?
only thing is I'm less dirty than I used to be, because a lot of my fans are little kids,
Right.
right? Because Britain's Got Talent's fans are very young.
Yeah.
Children lose their mind at it. So what I now do is when I do my tour shows, I will do at least an hour, which is clean,
Yeah.
and then I will warn the parents that there might be some dirty stuff in the end, so that at least my young fans can watch some of the show. People will come and expect what they saw. So
Yeah.
now I write knowing that. I'm like, at least for the beginning of my show, the
Yeah.
first half of my show, I should be what they saw. And if I'm not going to be that, I need to give them the choice to opt out.
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Just to finish off, then we do like a just for fun question, which is a bit random. Um,
Yes, random question away.
we did have one for you, but you've kind of piqued my interest on Roald Dahl. If you could be a character in
Yes.
one of his books, which character would you be and why?
Say that again.
If you could be a character in one of Roald Dahl's books, which character would you be and why?
I would be the big friendly giant,
Yeah,
because he deals in dreams. And
right.
I think that was the coolest invention, that he would blow dreams into people's ears, and I would love the idea of being a maker of dreams.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you. And that is pretty much it. You've got the tour coming up, obviously. You're coming to Leeds for the
Yes,
opening
it
night.
is called Apocalypse Not Now. Anybody listening, go to africancomedian.com and come see me wherever you are. It might be bizarre if it's early. So the first ones are going to be spread out,
Yeah,
some people wearing masks, and then hopefully as the tour goes, we're going to get closer and closer together.
yeah,
And then by the 2022 dates, I'm hoping it will be like crammed together like sardines, like we used to be.
perfect. Well, yeah, I think you're opening nights in Leeds. I think you're coming to Leeds for the first
Yes,
night.
I am. I am indeed.
That's our local venue, so I'm hoping we'll get along to that.
Oh, we'll see you there. See you there.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate your time, and yeah, if we do get to Leeds, you're going to need to bring that necklace now.
I will. I will indeed. 100%.
I'll remind you before then. But yeah, I'm looking forward to catching up with you in Leeds, and yeah, good luck. If there's anything you
Thank
want
you
to
so
say,
much.
just want
Thank
to
you.
wrap things up.
Bye.